Would a deadly kicker hamper Dan Campbell?
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's good, everybody? Matt Derry with you on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day on a Wednesday, May 8th and a Thursday, May 9th. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. That includes on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. If you haven't watched the show before, subscribe, go to YouTube, type in Locked On Lions, subscribe, and get there and watch each and every day right here on the Locked On Lions YouTube channel. You can follow us on Twitter as well at Derry Speaks, at Locked On Lions, Matt Derry Facebook fan page as well, where we post the show daily. Locked On Lions today brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Busy show today. I want to get into a kicking philosophy question, and really a question about what the Lions have done over the last 4 years when it comes to the kicking position. We'll get into that coming up momentarily. Lions have a new defensive tackle. We will discuss that as well, and just where Detroit is when it comes to their defensive line. And also there's a report out there from ESPN that the Lions moved up from 29 to 24 to steal a player away from the Packers, and that they blocked, I won't use the full term, but they C-blocked Green Bay from getting a player that they wanted. Wow, my phone just went flying here. Sorry about that. You know, we like to have our research team, our crack research staff at our disposal, even if it's during the show. This is great. I'm going to plug it in right now as I'm talking to you. So I just kicked need a new phone. So battery's all messed up. All right. Anyway, let's get into this. Thanks for checking us out. Bradford Banta, the former Detroit Lions special teams assistant coach, tight end, and long snapper, is going to join us tomorrow right here on this very program. If you missed Andrew Siciliano from yesterday, used to work at the NFL Network, of course, is a free agent. We talked to Andrew yesterday, so go back and check that out right here on Locked On Lions. All right. I'm going to say this again. Would a deadly kicker take away from what Dan Campbell is trying to do? Would it hamper what Dan Campbell is trying to do? I've been trying to think for the last few years why General Manager Brad Holmes, who has done a phenomenal job, a fantastic job building this roster, taking this team from 3 wins to 9 wins to 12 wins to 2 playoff wins last year, really 14 wins. Why is it that going on 4 years right now, the Lions just haven't had that ace kicker? Look at what happened last year in Dallas. The Cowboys signed a former soccer player, Brandon Aubrey, and he made the team. And not only did he make the team and became their kicker, he became one of the more dominant kickers of this era. He was knocking in 50-yarders, 60-yarders. He never missed. And it's like, wow, Dallas found a weapon, and they utilized him. And, of course, Dallas went on to the playoffs. They lost, of course, which is what the Cowboys do, right away to the Packers. But regardless, they were in the playoffs and NFC East champs. Teams have utilized kickers as weapons for many, many years. Now that we sit here in 2024, the kicking game isn't as important as it used to be because more coaches like Dan Campbell are going for it. You've got the 2-point conversion. You've got all this new math in the league, and guys are going for 2 more, etc. But for the last few years, I'm going to go back to my notes that I always keep here because I always talk about kickers because, as you know, for those of you that are watching on Locked On Lions or listening to Locked On Lions, you know that I've been doing the show since 2016, and I'm obsessed with my kicker list. You know, when Brad Holmes got here in 2021, he tried Zane Gonzalez, Randy Bullock, Matthew Wright, Austin Seibert, Ryan Santoso, Aldrick Rosas, and then Riley Patterson. 2 years ago, Seibert, Eberle, Badgley, Rosas, and Ficken. Those guys were on the practice squad. Last year, started the year with Riley Patterson for 13 games. Riley hit a couple of crossbars. Boom, he's gone. The money badger, Michael Badgley, is back. Now, Badgley's back on a 1-year deal. Okay, the guy that, of course, remember in the NFC Championship game, Dan Campbell really wasn't utilizing. Dan Campbell on every fourth down was going for it. Didn't really use Badgley on anything inside of 42 yards. All right. The Lions have James Turner now, at least for right now. The ex-Michigan kicker from this past year started his college career at Louisville. At least somebody to push Michael Badgley for the time being. There's been a lot of talk, including yours truly here, about Michigan Panthers kicker Jake Bates, the legend from the UFL, who has knocked in 5 60-yard field goals this season for your Michigan Panthers. And I believe 4 of those 5 have been at Ford Field. Big leg. This guy can really boot it through the uprights. There's been some talk that the Lions and other teams have been in talks with the Panthers. Some teams have even tampered with the guy, which you have to wait until the UFL season is done before you make a move and get him. Will the Lions go after him? I hope so. There's nothing wrong with adding Jake Bates. Plus, he's kicked at Ford Field and he's made 60-yarders at Ford Field. But here's why I think the Lions are not going to do it. If you've got a weapon like that can make 60-yard field goals, isn't that kind of going to take away from what Dan Campbell's been doing for the last 3 years? Aggressiveness, going for it on fourth down, the philosophy of if we can get 6 or 7, why wouldn't we do that as opposed to taking 3? 4th and 2 from the opponent's 42-yard line. If you've got Jake Bates, let's just use Jake Bates as an example. And you know, that guy's golden from 59. Would that take away from Dan Campbell and the aggressiveness that he has, the philosophy that he has about leaving his offense on the field? This philosophy of we can get 6 or 7. We can get a touchdown. A deadly kicker might hamper the coach into how he coaches the team. Maybe there's a reason they've never had a big leg 50, 55, 60-yard field goal money guy. Zerline has that big leg. The kid McManus years ago in Denver used to knock those big ones down. Remember Jason Elam, Riley Patterson, Michael Badgley, and guys of that ilk have never really been called upon to kick really, really long field goals because Dan Campbell's philosophy is forget the long 3. Let's keep the ball. I have confidence in my offense. I trust Jared Goff and our offense to convert on those fourth downs. Did it come back to bite Dan Campbell in the NFC Championship game? Some believe, yes, it did. Especially when on that fourth down, Goff tried to hit Josh Reynolds, threw it behind him a little bit. Reynolds did have his hands on it, and the Lions settled for 0. Later on in the game, Lions go empty set in the backfield, which I hated. Goff rolls out, throws an incomplete pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Again, Lions had an opportunity to get points there. They didn't take them. They weren't maybe comfortable with Badgley on grass, kicking along. What was that one? That would have been about a 49-yarder or whatever it was. So while we sit here and say competition for Badgley needs somebody with a big leg, maybe they don't. Maybe the Lions feel like our coach has so much confidence in our offense and his offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, that, we're not going to pursue Jake Bates. We're not going to change who we are. The Lions, what's the word I'm looking for? Identity is to be aggressive, is to be risky, especially when it comes to 4th and shorts. Come on, a couple of years ago, Dan Campbell on 4th and 7 was like, no, I know we like Michael Badgley. If we need those points, if it's a 4th and 9 and it's at the 30-yard line, we'll take the 47-yarder. If it's at the 20-yard line, we'll take the 37-yard. 4th and 9, 4th and 8, 4. Now, you got a guy in your own backyard kicking in the UFL who has had major success at Ford Field. I could be wrong, but I think the Lions might not sign him because they've got an identity of, we want our kicker to be good. We want him to be accurate, but it's not that important because who we are as an offense and who we are as a coach is being aggressive, a little risky, and we feel like we can put teams away getting 7 rather than 3. getting 8 rather than 3. Even 6, what you get when you score a touchdown rather than 3. I'm interested in your thoughts on it. I'll be reading your YouTube comments. A shout out to our everydayers that are out there that listen or watch every day right here on Locked On Lions. Totally appreciate all of you for checking us out. And again, wherever you get your podcast, which includes Spotify, Apple, Google. I'm trying to think of where else folks listen, but thank you for doing so. All right, coming up next, the Lions have added to their defensive line room. He's got some connections to his position coach. We will get into that coming up next, right here on Locked On Lions on a Wednesday edition. We mentioned before about our friends at FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Last night, if you had the home teams, Oklahoma City and Boston in the NBA, the Rangers in the NHL, you won some money. All of these games are cool. Tonight, Pacers, Knicks should be entertaining. Want to get in on the action? Check out FanDuel, all right, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, back on Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to remind you, if you want the postcasts and you want to hear what reaction, there will be a postcast today following the Tigers' choke job against my Cleveland Guardians. Brian Rocchio, baby. Come on. What's AJ Hinch pitching a big game David Fry for? You know that's big game Dave. You don't bring in a lefty to face big game Dave. He eats lefties for lunch. But if you want the postcast, go to Locked On Detroit Sports on YouTube. Jake Riepma, the host, right there on the Locked On Detroit Sports YouTube channel, will have the postcast from today's Guardians win over your Detroit Tigers. Lions, same type of animal, have added a piece along their defensive line as the team yesterday signed Kyle Peko, ex of the Tennessee Titans, Colts, Ravens, Raiders. He's been a lot of places, to a contract. Peko is 31 years old. Last year started 10 games for the Tennessee Titans. Was also with the Titans in 2021. Peko is here because the Lions, of course, have hired former Titans defensive line coach Terrion Williams, who is going to be the Lions' new D-line coach. So Terrion Williams knows Kyle Peko, and they've signed him. Peko, more of a run stopper, 6'1", 305 pounds. Not really a pressure guy. He's more of a run stopper. 7 total pressures per Pro Football Focus in 153 total pass rushing snaps. So you get a Terrion Williams guy in here, in Kyle Peko, who's a veteran and, can take up a little bit of space along that defensive line. Right now, if we're starting the season, we know this. Lions have DJ Reader at D tackle alongside Aleem McNeil. Those two guys are going to be phenomenal together. I cannot wait to see Reader and McNeil, 98 and 54, next to each other. Still on the roster, one Levi Onwuzurike, Broderick Martin, last year's 3rd-round pick that barely played. Mekhi Wingo, of course, the 6th-round pick out of LSU, the Lions have. Tyson Alualu, whom the Lions brought in last year, after as a free agent late in the season. Kaminsky can, of course, play inside and outside. Pascal as well. And now Kyle Peko, ex of Tennessee and 4 other teams. So veteran guy at 31 years old. Listen, I am all for stacking and stocking up on as many defensive tackles and defensive linemen as possible to see what they have, especially in the preseason. I don't think we're going to need to see DJ Reader or Aleem McNeil play in the preseason. But what we are going to need to see is some depth behind those guys. Last year, one of the weak spots for the Lions, especially when Aleem McNeil was out for a few weeks, were the guys after him. Lions didn't have enough push up front, and they weren't good enough in the middle throughout the season. I think it was an inconsistent season for guys like Onwuzurike, I mentioned Broderick Martin didn't play much. Quentin Bohanna was starting at times for the Lions. Then they had to lose him to the Cowboys. He had to go back to Dallas because they were kind of stashing him on the practice squad and putting him up on the active roster for games. Alualu was fine, but he's like 36 years old. This is a guy that knows the system, knows the position coach. And so I like the move. I like bringing in a guy like Kyle Peko, who we know, had a pretty good career at Oregon State. Watched him play a little bit with the Colts a few years ago and can be a run stopper and a depth guy along that defensive line. But again, what I'm really excited about are the starters here. DJ Reader could end up being one of the better pickups that Brad Holmes has ever made in free agency if he stays healthy. Lee McNeil's playing for a new contract. Those two guys are going to play a lot of snaps. But there's nothing wrong with having a veteran guy in there that can take up a little bit of space and get the job done. So Kyle Peko is here. You look at the depth chart right now. Along as we talk about edges a little bit, Hutchinson and Davenport, Kaminsky can play some edge. Pascal has played inside and outside. James Houston, I think the Lions are expecting big things from if he stays healthy. And don't forget, the Lions went out and got a combo guy in Matthew Betts, who was in the CFL last year, who could play kind of both inside and outside. The Lions like versatility. You look along the defensive line right now, and I think it's better. A year ago, we saw the Okwara brothers out there. We saw Charles Harris out there. And the problem is that their names weren't called much. They didn't do enough. Going and getting Davenport on a 1-year prove-it deal, if he stays healthy, he can get to the quarterback. That will take some pressure off of Aiden Hutchinson, who really has been the one guy over the last couple of years that's been consistently getting to the quarterback, that has not been coming in like Melifonwu or any of these others on a safety blitz. All right. So I like the depth here. I do. And Peko's a guy that knows how to play. So kudos to Brad Holmes. I mean, I was one that was saying, hey, can the Lions go out and get a Brian Burns? Can the Lions go out and get a Daniil Hunter? But I think the philosophy for Brad and the front office has always been 1-year deals, prove it deals, see if guys can play well, earn their money, earn another contract, similar to what Charles Harris did a few years ago, and not break the bank on free agents like that. But they're breaking the bank on the guys that have been here and were drafted here. Penei Sewell, they broke the bank to keep. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the highest paid receiver in the league. And they're talking to Jared Goff. I think the Lions are offering in the 40s. Jared's probably asking for 50, and that's where we sit right now. You got other guys coming up. Lee McNeil, they've got to keep. Taylor Decker is up after this year. Is he going to walk? You love the consistency from him. You love that he's a captain. You love that he wants to stay. But that's kind of been the philosophy of the Lions, is keeping their own guys. We saw that with Graham Glasgow this season and Jonah Jackson. Lions were not willing to give a $17 million a year deal like the, almost said St. Louis, LA Rams were. So we'll have to see on that. All right. Interesting story from Jeremy Fowler at ESPN about what the Lions did when they moved up from 29 to 24. You heard Peter Bukowski on Monday, right here on Locked On Lions, the host of Locked On Packers, taking a few swipes at the Lions draft. But did the Lions block the Packers from getting the guy that they wanted? If they did, I love it. We'll do that coming up next right here on Locked On Lions, a Wednesday edition. Beautiful sunny day out there. Many of you are outside enjoying the sunshine. What's wrong with going out, sitting on your deck, grabbing your phone, and playing a little game of Monopoly Go on your phone? I know what you're saying. Flag on the play, Matt. You've talked about this every day for weeks. Yeah, but there's so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis if you want to taunt your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. My wife plays it every day. She loves it. So get off the bench. Go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Matt Derry with you, Locked On Lions Wednesday edition. Bradford Banta, the former Lions long snapper and tight end, are going to join us tomorrow on the program. Fun story here from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler about Terrion Arnold, whom the Lions, of course, moved up from 29 to 24 to grab in the first round, the cornerback out of Alabama. Everybody giving it rave reviews that the Lions went out and got arguably the best corner in the draft and got him at 24. Some will say it was Quinyon Mitchell and everything else, but regardless, that's the story. The Lions jumped ahead of the Packers to get Arnold. And it sounds like, according to Jeremy Fowler at ESPN.com, the Lions knew Green Bay was interested. Quote in the story, as Detroit moved from number 29 to number 24 to snag corner Terrion Arnold, the Packers at number 25 were among the teams that Arnold's camp had firmly on the radar entering the 20s. The belief is Green Bay had Arnold rated highly. End quote. Now, again, the Packers ended up taking Jordan Morgan, the left tackle from Arizona. Some Packer fans didn't love that. Some thought it should have been Connor Barton. Some were waiting for the Packers to take a cornerback. Many believed they were going to try to get Cooper DeJean. They did not. What's most interesting about what Fowler says is that Green Bay also didn't draft a corner until the 7th round when they took Kalen King from Penn State. Now, I cannot believe that King lasted until the 7th round. I watched Penn State a lot this year. I thought he was a lot better than a 7th round pick, but that's neither here nor there. So let's say the Packers didn't get Terrion Arnold. Why not Nate Wiggins, who was also on the board, or Cooper DeJean, who was also on the board? They instead did not do that. They took a left tackle instead to replace David Bakhtiari, who is retiring. So at least for right now, the Packers cornerbacks are Jair Alexander, who is a really good player, but we never know if he's happy or unhappy, and Eric Stokes. But what I love about this is last year, the Lions traded with the Packers, traded with Green Bay, moved up to 47 and got Brian Branch. Don't tell me the Packers wouldn't love to have a guy like Brian Branch right now. Remember, the Packers had drafted a safety this year. Last year, they took they grabbed another 2 defensive backs in free agency. And now this year, maybe, just maybe, Brad Holmes outsmarted Brian Gutekunst, the GM of the Packers, and said, we've got to get to 24 now, or we're not going to get Terrion Arnold. He'll go 25. And here's a report from a very good source and a very good reporter, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, kind of confirming that. And the more I think about it, the more I love the Terrion Arnold pick. And it's not just because of the Green Bay thing, but gosh, you talk Lions with people around town and you go back and you see the highlights of the NFC Championship game. And you think about for a second that the Lions were 30 minutes away from going to the Super Bowl. And they were starting Cam Sutton and Kindle Vildor at corner next to Brian Branch. And it's like, and if those guys got hurt, like Will Harris had to come into the game, or Jerry Jacobs was still on the team. And it's amazing. And now you look up and you go, Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, Emmanuel Mosley, if he's healthy, Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw Jr., maybe Stephen Gilmore gets more of an opportunity this year. Khalil Dorsey, who ended up having to play some late in the season last year. That cornerback room, and I mentioned before, the D-line room is just so much better. And for folks to think that this team's going to take a step back, and look, again, they might not win 12 games because of the schedule and how difficult it is. But I still think they're going to win the division. Could they win? This division is going to beat up on each other. Could 10 wins, 11 wins still maybe win the division? It's possible. It's possible. But I really like this team. And if they stay healthy and Jared Goff stays healthy, the sky is certainly the limit. But man, to move up and grab Terrion Arnold, shout out to Brad Holmes. You got Jeremy Fowler at ESPN saying he was told Packers loved him. Packers camp, or Arnold's camp, thought he was going 25 to Green Bay as the picks were rolling in the early 20s. Brad Holmes like, I got to go get him. And I got to move up to 24 to get him. Because if Green Bay's not trading again, Packers aren't trading with you again like they did last year. Not a chance. So pretty cool stuff from that story from Jeremy Fowler. All right, Bradford Banda is going to join us. We've had Brad on the show before, the former Lion, get his thoughts on the draft, the roster. We'll do that tomorrow. Thanks for making us your first listen, checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Again, please subscribe and watch us on our Locked on Lions YouTube channel if you missed Andrew Siciliano from yesterday, the pride of Syracuse University and currently NFL TV free agent. Check out Andrew from yesterday right here on Locked on Lions. We'll see you.